Good afternoon. My name is Mary Sue McCaslin, and I am the Inpatient Director for Quality and Patient Safety. I'm presenting today on behalf of myself and my coworker, April Lopez, who is the Ambulatory Division Director for Quality and Patient Safety. Welcome to Eisenhower. This is the Patient Safety General Orientation presentation. Healthcare is a high-risk industry. Extraordinary things happen every day in healthcare. But what is a high-risk industry? A high-risk industry is one where a seemingly small error or oversight could have a very high impact for a tragic error. What are some of the other examples of a high-risk industry? These include the airline industry, or nuclear radiation, and also the auto industry. Next, we see the voice of the patient. This presentation is put on by who we consider our co-presenter. Her name is Sorrel King. She was the mother of a daughter, Josie King, who was 18 months old and lost her life to a tragic medication error and miscommunication during her stay at Johns Hopkins University Hospital. This presentation was taped as a part of a presentation, a grand round presentation at Johns Hopkins.
The following story was captured on video serendipitously at a meeting of 800 care providers. The speaker is a mother who lost her daughter at one of our leading U.S. hospitals, and this was only the second time that she had spoken to a public audience. We just happened to have a video crew on hand, and we were shooting a video of experts for a scholarship program when she began to speak. We just let the camera roll.
My daughter Josie died a year and a half ago at Johns Hopkins due to medical errors. Last week, I had the opportunity to speak at grand rounds to the doctors, nurses, and leadership of the hospital. I spoke about what happened to Josie and about the Josie King Patient Safety Program that is being launched. Reliving our tragedy was a painful and difficult thing for me to do. When Peter asked me 2 days later if I would be interested in going to Boston to speak at this conference, I quite honestly was not sure I had the strength to do it again so soon. After thinking about it, I realized I had to be here. Not only do I represent Josie, but I also represent all of the other children, the mothers, the fathers, the sisters, the brothers, the 98,000 people who die every year in this country from medical errors. I'm here for them, for their families, and for any future potential victims. I would like to share my story with you. I do this with the hope that what I'm about to tell you will make a difference in how you care for your patients and how strongly committed you and your hospital are to patient safety. Josie was 18 months old. She had brown eyes and light brown hair. She loved to dance and had just learned to bounce on the trampoline with her older siblings, Jack, Relly, and Eva. She had just learned to say, "I love you." In January of 2001, Josie was admitted to Johns Hopkins after suffering first and second-degree burns from climbing into a hot bath. She healed well, and within weeks was scheduled for release. 2 days before she was to return home, she died of severe dehydration and misused narcotics. I would like to take you through the events that resulted in this needless tragedy. Josie spent 10 days in the PICU. I was by her side every day and night. I paid attention to every minute detail of the doctors' and nurses' care, and I was quick to ask questions. I bonded with them and was in constant awe of the medical attention she received. Every time Josie moved or fussed, someone would be quick to push her pain button. I tried rubbing her head and found that often this would settle her. Much to our relief, Josie was experiencing a quick recovery. Her burns were healing beautifully. She was sent down to the intermediate care floor with expectations of being sent home in a few days. Her 3 older siblings prepared for her welcome home celebration. We were told that no one had ever been sent back up to the PICU. The following week, her central line had been taken out. I began noticing that every time she saw a drink, she would scream for it, and I thought this was strange. I was told not to let her drink. While a nurse and I gave her a bath, she sucked furiously on a washcloth. As I put her to bed, I noticed that her eyes were rolling back in her head. Although I asked the nurse to call the doctor, she reassured me that oftentimes children did this and her vitals were fine. I told her Josie had never done this, and perhaps another nurse could look at her. After yet another reassurance from another nurse that everything was fine, I was told that it was okay for me to sleep at home. I called to check in 2 times during the night and returned to the hospital at 5:30 in the morning. I took one look at Josie and demanded that a doctor come at once. She was not fine. Josie's medical team arrived and administered 2 shots of Narcan. I asked if she could have something to drink. The request was approved, and Josie gulped down nearly a liter of juice. Verbal orders were issued for there to be no narcotics given. As I sat with Josie, I noticed that the nurse on morning duty was acting very strangely. She seemed nervous, overly demonstrative, and in a hurry. Uneasy, I asked the other nurses about her, and they said she had been a nurse for a long time. Still worried, I expressed my concern to one of the doctors, and he agreed that she was acting a bit odd. Meanwhile, Josie started perking up. She was more alert and had kept all the liquids down. I was still scared and asked her doctors to please stay close by. At 1 o'clock, the nurse walked over with a syringe of methadone. Alarmed, I told her there had been an order for no narcotics. She said the orders had been changed and administered the drug. Josie's heart stopped as I was rubbing her feet. Her eyes were fixed and I screamed for help. I stood helpless as a crowd of doctors and nurses came running into her room. I was ushered into a small room with a chaplain. The next time I saw Josie, she had been moved back up to the PICU. Doctors and nurses were standing around her bed. No one seemed to want to look at me. She was hooked up to many machines and her leg was black and blue. I looked into their faces and said to them, "You did this to her, now you must fix her." I was told to pray. 2 days later, Jack, Relly, and Eva were brought to the hospital to kiss their beloved Josie goodbye. Josie was taken off of life support. She died in our arms on a snowy night in what's considered to be one of the best hospitals in the world. Our lives were shattered and changed forever. Josie died from severe dehydration and misused narcotics, careless human errors. On top of our overwhelming sorrow and intense grief, we were consumed by anger. They say anger can do one of 2 things to you. It can cause you to rot away, or it can propel you forward. There were days when all I wanted was to destroy the hospital and then put an end to my own pain. My 3 remaining children were my only reason for getting out of bed and functioning. One day, I will tell them how they saved my life. Tony and I decided that we had to let the anger move us forward. We would do something good that would help prevent this from ever happening to a child again. It seemed the best place to start was with Johns Hopkins. Over the past 1.5 years, we have worked with the hospital to create the Josie King Patient Safety Program. Together, we launched the program last week. Josie's death was not the fault of one doctor or one nurse or one misplaced decimal point. It was the result of a total breakdown in the system. It was the result of a complete lack of communication between the different teams. It was the result of doctors and nurses not listening to a concerned parent. It was the result of a combination of many errors, all of which were avoidable. What if the nurse had called the doctor when Josie's eyes were rolling back in her head? What if she could have had a drink or had been hooked up to an IV? What if the residents had paid attention and seen that her weight had dropped over 15% in 24 hours? What if the nurse had not given her the methadone? What if someone had taken my concerns seriously? What if a patient safety program had been in place? I believe that if any one of these things had occurred, the outcome could have been different and Josie would be here today. 98,000 people die every year because of medical errors. Hospital errors are among the top 4 leading causes of death in the country. This problem is unlike cancer, AIDS, or other diseases where we must wait for a scientific breakthrough in order to save lives. Hospitals are a man-made epidemic. Nurses and doctors make mistakes and lives are being lost. These human errors need a human solution. You are the only ones that can solve this problem, not lawyers, not insurance companies, and not people like me. Much has to be done to accomplish this. We can start by first admitting to ourselves that we are fallible. The medical community must be open to the possibility that shortcomings do exist, and you must be prepared to make the necessary changes. Please take the time to listen to a parent when they are concerned. Please learn to trust a parent's instincts. Please communicate with each other, nurses to doctors, one team to another team. Please listen to the child. Is she crying because she's in pain, or is there some other reason? Please look at the child. Not all the answers are on your clipboards or computers. Thank you for listening to me today. For the past year and a half, I have known I would one day find the strength to share this story with those who can make a difference. My precious memories and everlasting love for Josie give me this strength, and I will not rest until we make something good come from her senseless death. I will not rest until hospitals become safer places. I am not asking for your pity. I'm asking for your help. I do not know the answers. I only know that there is a problem that must be solved. Some of the best and brightest doctors and nurses in the country are in this room, and I know that together, if we are all committed and work hard, we can control hospital errors and we can save the lives of other potential victims, other helpless children. Thank you.
So what is patient safety? Patient safety reduces the risk of unnecessary health-associated harms. And we also look at these harms as preventable harms. So patient safety takes a look at these and decides which ones are preventable and which ones are not. We apply safety science methods towards the goal of achieving a trustworthy and reliable system of healthcare delivery. We also look at human factors, or use a science of human factors engineering. And this is the relationship between human beings and the systems in which they work. So we have people, we have a system, and that interaction is what we call human factors engineering. Human factors issues are major contributors to adverse events. But here at Eisenhower, we do look closely at the systems and processes that our employees are working in to determine if there was a systems issue that caused the adverse event. We also use things like root cause analysis, process flow mapping, failure mode effect analysis, all of these scientific methods to look at our patient safety events. This is what we refer to as the science of patient safety. Again, errors are commonly caused by faulty systems, processes, and conditions that can lead people to make the mistakes or fail to prevent them. One of the ways that we prevent these mistakes is by using a checklist, which is a tool to help us prevent our errors. In 2021, the Joint Commission on the Accreditation of Healthcare Organizations, or the Joint Commission, issued their 2021 National Patient Safety Goals. And what are these goals? First is to improve the accuracy of patient identification. We have two patient identifiers that we use here at Eisenhower. This is our name and our date of birth. Second, improve the effectiveness of communication among caregivers, specifically focusing on critical lab values. Next, use medications safely, specifically labeling all medications on the sterile field, and focus on anticoagulants and antimicrobials and opioids. Next, use alarms safely. Nurses also always refer to many alarms going off at the same time as alarm fatigue, and so the Joint Commission has focused on this as a national patient safety goal. Next is reduce the risk of healthcare-associated infections. This has been a big issue in 2020 with COVID, but moving into 2021, they want to continue the emphasis on hand hygiene and reducing healthcare-associated infections. Additionally, CAUTI and CLABSI are in that as well. The hospital identifies safety risks inherent in its patient population, and the Joint Commission has focused on behavioral health risks, specifically suicide. And lastly, universal protocol, or preventing the wrong person, wrong site, and wrong procedure surgeries. So that is focusing on what we call the timeout process. So that's universal protocol. One of the things that we look at is AHRQ, which is the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality. And what they have discovered by looking at these initiatives over the years is that we've had a 21% reduction in hospital-acquired conditions. We've saved 3 million fewer adverse events. 125,000 lives have been saved, and $28 billion in savings. So patient safety is everyone's responsibility. If you see something, say something. We have a method of reporting errors here at Eisenhower, and I wanted to point out to you that we do have a card that you will be getting with your badges. This is our patient safety goals are on this, so you should always know your national patient safety goals. They're printed on this. Additionally, there's a phone number on here, and it's 7475, or RISK, and that is the number that you can call and report a safety issue. Now, this can be a near miss, it can be an actual error, but you can call 7475. It is completely anonymous, so you can do that. There are also methods to report it online. You can go into ICNet and go and report it that way. You can also report through Epic. So you can be in a patient's chart and you can go ahead and pull up incident report right through Epic, and that'll pre-populate all the patient information. So we have a lot of different ways that you can report. 7475 goes to my extension. It also goes to Risk Management's extension, and I believe that you have already heard from risk managers, and so you know that this will be addressed. So one of the things that we also like to stress is the communication tools that will help you to speak up. We know that it's not always easy to speak up when you see something that might happen, a near miss might occur, or an adverse event might occur, and you're thinking, I should say something. Well, a lot of times that's not that easy. So how do I communicate? One of the communication tools that we use here is CUSS, and no, you do not need to cuss at anybody, but it's a good acronym to remember. I am concerned that this may be too high a dose for this patient. Let me check before I give it. Or secondly, this makes me uncomfortable because although I was trained on this piece of equipment many years ago, I haven't used it in a long time, and I might need a refresher before I use it. Or this is a patient safety issue, and that really should stop everybody right there. This is a patient safety issue because the nurse is telling me one thing, but the patient's telling me something else. I need to make sure I've got this straight before I proceed. So CUS, the communication tool, I am concerned, or this makes me uncomfortable, or this is a patient safety issue. Next, communication tool is the 2-challenge rule. So if CUS doesn't work or get the attention of the people that you're trying to get the attention of, you want to go ahead and ask another challenge question. So this is a challenge question. Something like, is this the right medication for this patient? Is this the right dose? Is this the right route? So kind of get that interaction going. The second challenge question then provides some support for your concern. Patients' family members concerned that this medication is not supposed to be given anymore. I'm not comfortable with giving this medication as ordered. I'm going to clarify this with the doctor before I go any further. So these are communications tools. So if that doesn't get you any help, take it up another level, all right? Talk to your attending or take it up your chain of command with nursing and make sure that your thoughts are heard before you go any further. Patients do have rights and responsibility. They are located in the Patient Guide to Services. They ensure that the patient and family knows the location of the Department of Health, so the California Department of Public Health, and the Joint Commission telephone numbers for reporting concerns. We do have a risk management department here. We have patient safety, which is my department. We also have patient relations, and we are all very willing to help alleviate these concerns before they go any further. However, the patients do have the responsibility and the right to go ahead and report if they feel that there's a concern. Again, we can direct patients and families to patient relations and risk management. Employees also have rights. So if there are concerns about patient safety or quality of care, employees can report to the Joint Commission or California Department of Public Health without any disciplinary action. Again, we would hope that you would call risk management or patient relations or patient safety first. Let us talk through it, and hopefully we can alleviate that concern. So key takeaways from today's presentation are to report your safety events, whether these are near misses or we call them good catches here at Eisenhower, or actual safety events. We would like to see them. If you want to put them in the incident reporting system or you pick up the phone and call us, either way, we really would like to hear them. We also would like you to learn those communication techniques, and if they don't work, we want to make sure that you know that you have that responsibility to go ahead and stop the line. Make sure that you stop that patient's care at that point, and make sure that you get clarification before moving any further. And if you don't get the response that you need in the beginning, go ahead and take it up the chain of command if necessary. Congratulations and welcome to Eisenhower. Please feel free to call me. My extension is 8104 if you have any other questions.